We're here on site at Cleenol. You have been in the building trying to beat Cleenol staff at table tennis. I didn't see you had any luck, so I apologise for that. Please, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why I have 3 bronze medals around my neck?
Yeah, I am Aaron Mckibbin. I'm a GB para table tennis player, and they are my 3 medals from the last 3 games. I've played table tennis for Great Britain since I was 21, and I'm soon in the next few months in the summer competing at Paris 2024 for my 4th games.
So tell me how you got into table tennis, because from what you've told me, it's not where your dreams and passion begun.
Yeah, I think as long as I can remember, I've always been into sport. From the age of 4, I played tennis. That was my first passion. Living very close to Wimbledon tennis courts, I really wanted to one day represent at Wimbledon. And growing up with a disability, which I didn't actually realise, I didn't realise I had a disability until I was around 19 years old. I always knew I had a condition, but I was always brought up in a family which was always taught me that, there's nothing wrong with you. You just have some obstacles you need to overcome. So I never classed myself disabled. So when I got to the age of around 14 at tennis, I was starting to lose to kids that previously I was beating them very comfortably. But as they were getting a bit fitter and faster and stronger, due to my disability, obviously that was a factor which impacted me. I started to lose and I didn't understand why I was losing, because for me, I was more skillful, and because I didn't see my disability as a factor for hampering it, I couldn't understand what's going on. So I basically quit sport altogether. And around 16, literally found table tennis at school, messing around at a wet lunch break time. And we had a coach who used to come in. He was top 15 in England, and he obviously saw my hand-eye coordination and was like, you could be amazing at table tennis. You ever thought about giving it a go? And I was like, nah, not really interested in this. It's not a sport. And he's like, no, it is a sport. He's like, can do this, do that. And I was like, really not interested, mate. And he was like, I'll get you out of history. I can get you out. I can get you out of RS. And I was like, all right. I was like, you should have told me that at the beginning. I'd been straight in it. So he started taking me out of lessons and giving me one-to-one coaching. And again, eventually joined a local club, played a bit again, and I got spotted by literally a player from my team now, Will Bailey. Saw me at a local Grand Prix, which is just like a English tournament. And he was like, you're pretty good. He's like, you ever thought about playing for the Paralympics? And I was like, nah. I was like, can't play for the Paralympics. I said, I've not got a disability. And he was like, no, trust me, you do. I'm looking around going, that's a bit rude. but yeah, did that. And I went home, spoke to my family and said, like, they've asked me to do this. I'm not really interested. And my mum said to me, she's like, well, look, your dream was always to play Wimbledon and represent tennis at the highest level world stage. Like, why not do it in table tennis? And I think for some reason that just clicked in my brain, and I was like, I'll go in and I'll give it a go. And I got invited to an international in Romania in 2011. And I remember just walking out on day one, wearing my Great Britain kit, loads of people in the crowd watching, and just thinking like, wow, like, this is what I've always wanted. So I came back from there and was like, this is what I want to do. And I need to start playing full time if I'm going to make it for London 2012.
And how long did you have to train for London 2012?
So basically, that I played the international just before the qualification season started. So I had the whole year to qualify, but I was nowhere near good enough. And I knew that as well. I remember coming home, I was training in London 2 or 3 hours a day at a club after school, and it wasn't good enough really. And I remember coming from Romania and just going like, I need to move to Sheffield, which is a national centre where I could go from training 2 hours a day to training 6 hours a day with all the support staff like psychologists, strength and conditioning, physios, coaches. Everything around me was sort of taken care of. And I think also, from being a bit naive and young, I was delusional, because I basically got home and was like, right, Mum, I'm moving to Sheffield. And I remember like calling up my coach and saying like, right, I want to move to Sheffield. And they're like, no, you don't just move to Sheffield. Like, you've got to be invited by the Great Britain team. I was like, oh, right. I was like, well, how do we do that then? And he was like, well, yeah, we can sort that out. Like, you can come up, but then I'm on a train to Sheffield basically. And I'm thinking, everyone's like, well, how are you going to pay for your rent and all that? And I was like, oh, I haven't got a clue. I was like, I'm just going to have to work this out as we're going along. I was like, I just in my head, I knew like, I just need to be there somehow, because otherwise I've got no chance. And I remember for the next year, like, I think I went back to London maybe 3 times that year. So from literally not living away from home at 17, I never left home, to suddenly moving halfway across England and like training 6 hours every day. I think I'd lost something stupid like 6 stone in the first 6 months. And I remember coming home, my gran being like, oh my God, like, what's happening to you? She started posting me up like care packages of biscuits with like notes going like, you're not eating. And I was like, no. I was like, I am. I was like, the difference is I was really fat. I was like, so it's a good thing. But yeah, so it was a good time in my life. It was also, it was just a whirlwind of me just suddenly going like, I need to do this. That's something in the back of my head told me that's what I needed to do.
Just want to go back a step. You turned around and said in the answer to the last question that you didn't think you had a disability. Someone turned around, insulted you, saying that your table tennis was that bad that you did. But what was your disability? Explain that. Explain what that was like, as a child, having that.
Yeah, so I was born with a condition called bilateral talipes. I think other people know it's clubfoot. It's actually, I'm an ambassador now for a charity called Miracle Feet, which, as a kid, I never knew a charity to do with it. But now I've actually learned a lot more about it in the last few years. I realise it's actually quite a common disability. There's a lot of people who have it exceptionally mild that you probably won't even realise. There's a high chance probably you've got someone in the workplace that's even got it that so mild it's quite a common disability. But I had it literally as a 9 out of 10. So I was born with my feet basically facing backwards, and had corrective surgery from, I don't know, I think from what my mum told me, from as early as possible, like from 3 or 4 weeks old, I had my first surgery, I think. And they would literally break the bones, move them around, cast them, and let them heal. And it'd be a process of doing that. And that was all the way until I think I was maybe 8 or 9 throughout. And then I think after 9 years old, every year I'd have a major one. So I think I got to around 13 or 14 when I was in secondary school, and I just remember saying, like, I've had enough of this now. Like, there was another surgery I could have done which could have made it even better, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing any more surgeries. I'm not missing any more time with my friends and school. And I was like, I'm happy with how things are. I'm just going to crack on. And I was always brought up not being told I had a disability. So, and I'm grateful for that, because it was like I was treated exactly the same as my sister. I see a lot of people, sadly now, and I understand it's from a good place. You see a lot of people, parents, that when they have kids with disabilities, they sort of sugarcoat them and try and like, oh no, don't do that, don't care for that, you're gonna hurt them. And it's like, it's from a good place, but the reality is, like, you bring them up to sort of have excuses as to why they can't do things. And my mum was very keen on making me be independent and do things for myself. And while there's probably times when I was a kid where I didn't want to do things for myself and I'd wish someone would do something for me, it's in the long run it's very beneficial for me. And I think it's a large factor as to why I'm successful at my sport now, because all them little bits I've had as a kid have made me become more determined in my sport to sort of prove I can do things that people don't think are possible.
So while you were on the tennis circuit and competing against able-bodied people as such, and beating them, you were still having surgery, legs in plaster throughout all of this.
Yeah. It's like once a year for sure it would happen. So I'd have a couple of months where I literally couldn't do anything. And I just remember, like, even as a kid, there was videos of me, like, I used to go to my grandparents and stuff, and we used to play out on her estate, like all the kids, and there'd be videos of me, like, in casts, like still playing football and stuff, and everyone would be like, what are you doing? I'd be like, I can still play. So it never used to hold me back, but it was just part of my life, basically. And I think as a kid, it didn't really bother me, but I just remember when I was getting a bit older, the only reason it bothered me is because it was taken away from being able to play out and being able to do things like, having to stay in the house for extra time and stuff, like, which I always just wanted to be out playing some sort of sport, whether it's football, tennis, basketball. I love playing sport. So I think that's when it got to the stage where I was like, I've had enough of this. But yeah, when I was competing in tennis, that was happening. But I also think that's kind of the reason why I was successful as a kid, because I would I use my brain a lot more. I was a lot more tactical in terms of being able to move the ball around and spot people's weaknesses a lot easier. And I think that's also which helps me a lot now in table tennis. Like, even though I'm now mature and very good at my sport, it's one of my massive strengths is I'm very quick to work out weaknesses of people and how to manipulate them around, which I've had to learn from a kid from playing able-bodied sport.
Can you give me an example of that? I'm aware of one that you shared with me last time where you noticed a weakness in a competitor and used to exploit that, and then actually told them about it at the end.
Yeah, so I think it's a thing in Paralympic sport where our aim is basically to work out what their disability is and how can you absolutely nail it. And from an outside point of view, like able-bodied people, like politically correct people, would be like, you can't say that, you can't do that, and it's like, no, like this is elite sport, like this is what we're doing. Like, if Djokovic is playing against someone and he sees they've got a weakness, do you really think he turns around and goes, "Oh, I can't highlight that weakness. That's not nice." Like, but there's a Swedish guy that I had to play one tournament, and he was new. And like in our sport, Sweden are quite a good nation. Like, so you normally know, like if you're playing someone from Sweden, they're going to be of a certain caliber. It's not going to be a person who turns up and is like, "This is an easy one." So I remember just watching him knock up, and I wasn't really focusing on him. I was focusing on myself. But I kept getting this feeling like he was looking at me, because I could see him from across the hall, and I was thinking, why does this guy keep looking at me? And I've realised at the side of my view, like he's looking like slightly tilted with his head like this. And I've realised after that, I'm like, oh, he must be like partially blind in this eye. So he's only got one good eye, because that's why he keeps twisting. So I've said to my coach before the match, I was like, look, we don't know nothing about him, but I know that he can't see so well out of this eye. So his forehand here is going to be very weak. So I was like, so I'm going to pin it in there first, and then like start to move the ball around. And he was like, okay. He's like, so what's going on there? So anyway, I started doing it. And it's like I've absolutely annihilated him like really quickly, and it was really easy. Come off, gone, boom. Coach was like, yeah, that's brilliant. The guy said to me, he was like, oh, because I had no chance against you. I couldn't really get used to the rhythm and stuff. And I was like, yeah. I was like, you can't really see out of this eye, can you? And he was like, how do you know? And I was like, can I tell by the way your head's moving? And he was like, oh, right, yeah. I was like, yeah. So that's why I was pinning the ball in there. I was like, because I thought you're going to struggle there. You're going to be slower to react there. So that's why I'm going to use it. And he was like, I think it was his first tournament as well, so I think he was a bit like shocked. I think he was a bit like, bloody hell, like no one's ever said that to me and like done that. But in my head, I was like, well, that's an advantage for me. I'm going to take care of that advantage. There's no point in me playing just strength and making it harder for myself. So yeah.
Going back to the family house growing up in, tell us a little bit more about how your family helped you kind of ignore your disability, what you learned from that, and what you've kind of used from that upbringing to help you become an elite athlete.
Yeah, I think, as I say, from my childhood was like exceptionally normal childhood. I was treated like everyone else. I think the positives of it was that it made me not find excuses for why I couldn't do something. It was, my mum would always say, she would never say like, you can't do that, you can't. It's like, well, how can you do that? Like I always give the example, if there's a glass of water over there and I'd be like, well, can I get that water? My aunt, who's super caring, might be like, oh, I'll get that for you, don't worry, sweetheart. And I'm like, my mum be like, no, you get it. And I'm like, yeah, but it's up there. She'd be like, well, got to find a way how to get it. Do you have to like climb up onto a chair or something? Like, you've got to find a way to do it, because this is how you're going to have to do it. And it was almost like that problem solving skills I was given, which I don't actually think she knew she was doing, to be honest. I think she literally was more like, I just want you to be independent. Like, I believe you can do that. I don't think you need to not be able to do that. But I think it just gave me problem solving skills from exceptionally young, which at the time I would have never known. And I think, as I said, it was only maybe in the last 5-6 years I look back on it and I think, actually, yeah, there's probably some of the skills I've learned from being an absolute child that's helped me become more problem solving in reality in day life. And yeah, it's just, I think like for me, it's carried over into everything now. Like when I play sport, when I was doing my uni degree, all these sort of things, it's always like, I just feel like I'm naturally a problem solver. And that's the first thing I look at. I always think, okay, in everyday life, there's going to be an issue. How can we get around it? How can we find a way to fix it and do the best we can? And maybe if it's not, I might not be able to do it to 100%, but how do I get as close to 100% as possible that there's not an impact?
You are a very determined individual. Where do you think you got your determination from?
I think, as I always say, my family always tell me, and my girlfriend always tells me, I'm a very stubborn person. I think there's negatives and positives to that. Sometimes more negatives, I guess. And I think just more so, I'm so competitive. Like, I just love the feeling of winning, like the feeling of achieving something. Like what it gives me inside is like, I always treat it like it's almost like a drug. I'm always chasing it. And I don't just get that in table tennis, I get that in all walks of life. If there's something I find difficult and I find a way of doing it, that gives me a sense of accomplishment. And I think, so I've just learned throughout my life that, if I break things down into like small winnable goals, I can get to my main goal eventually. Like not setting the goal, not setting the barrier up here straight away. Like, okay, I want to, if I wanted to run 10 miles, I wouldn't be saying, okay, how do I run 10 miles today? It's like, okay, I want to run a mile today and build my way up to it. And that's like them small achievement goals are going to get me to that 10 miles. And that's sort of how I look at everything now, really. whether it's business or sport or whatever. So I always try to look at it.
I have 3 very heavy medals.
How's your neck doing?
I am definitely regretting the to sit through the whole podcast with these on.
I told you.
Tell me a little bit more about them. Obviously, London, Rio, and Tokyo.
Yeah, so 3 games, 3 of the same colour, but actually very different stories between each one of them. So London 2012, which is this one, is the first ever one. That was a bit of a whirlwind games, as I said, like at 2011, realising I want to try and make it, knowing I wasn't good enough. Like the achievement was actually getting there. Like that was, in some ways, that was the medal, because I was nowhere near the level. So the fact that we came away with a medal, I don't think realistically any of us were thinking about that at all. So it almost didn't even sink in for the first few months. It's like we went home with a medal, because it was only 3 or 4 internationals before that we started to suddenly win medals. We were losing our group stages before that, and suddenly we started to win every now and then, like 1 or 2. So it was like we knew that we had an opportunity, but it wasn't really on the forefront of our mind. It was like, can we just play well and see what happens? Then Rio, we went to, which is this one. This is probably my greatest one in terms of the feeling, because we went out there knowing that we won the best teams in the world, but the way the draw happened, we ended up having to play China. We lost the semi-final really tight to Ukraine, which they were seeded above us, but it was so close that it was almost like you were like that close to grasp. And we knew if we'd won that, we'd probably win gold. So to lose that, and then the following day we had to come back and play our bronze playoff. So I remember sitting in we have like a room where like athletes could sit after matches, and we literally sat in there, like looking at the floor as if life's over. We've just lost. Our coach has come up to us. He's like, "Come on, like pick yourselves up. You've got to play tomorrow." And we thought we were going to play Sweden, because Sweden were playing China. So we were like, "Okay, I've got to play Sweden tomorrow. Like, it's going to be difficult. We've got a chance." I remember we walked outside. We sat in the stands watching the last few points, because suddenly it was like they were actually 1-1. It was the last match, and we were thinking, "What's going on there?" And suddenly China lost, and Sweden beat China. So we had to play China for a bronze playoff. So we've gone from losing, thinking we might win gold, to suddenly I've looked at my teammate and gone, I don't know if we can swear on this. I was like, we're stuffed. I was like, we can't, like, we don't know what to do. We can't beat China. Like, they're the best. So then we've gone home that night, and we're literally thinking, like, obviously for us, our funding's based on medals as well. So if you don't win a medal, your funding goes from here to here. So we've gone from thinking we're sad we're not going to win a gold to we might be retiring tomorrow night, because if we don't win here, we're done. And we went home that night, and I remember our coach, like, we were sat on the balcony in Rio, outside, like we had this, like, where we had apartments basically. Our coach just sat out, and he was like, "Do you know what?" He's like, "Whatever happens tomorrow, happens. Like, we give it our best." I was like, "You got to remember, there's much worse things going on in the world than a match of table tennis. There was like wars going on. There's children starving. Like, you can't worry about not winning a medal. Like, it's not that big of a deal." And I think that made us sit there and we were like, yeah, to be fair, like, as much as this means everything to us, like, we're not going to die if we don't win. We're going to wake up tomorrow. Like, life's going to carry on. So we went back home, and for some reason, I've got a very good record against Chinese people personally. I don't know why, because they are the best in our sport, but there's something about their game that suits me, and I've won more than I've lost. So, and I kept having this dream leading up to the games that we were going to beat China to win a medal. So I don't know if that instilled like inner confidence, but I said to my teammates, I was like, I think we're going to win this. Like, I still think we're going to win. Anyway, China switched the draw. So I thought I was going to play a certain player who I was confident, and they switched it to actually the weaker person who I didn't have a very good record against. So we've seen the draw, and I'm looking at my teammate and gone, "It's all right." And he's gone, "Yeah, it's all right." And in my head, I've gone, "We're stuffed." And in his head, he's gone, "He don't believe he's going to win." So we've gone up, but we beat them, and I had to win the match to win us the medal. So it was 1-1, and I was playing the final game, and I just remember there being teammates, like family and friends were there, 10,000 people, I think, in the ground, and like, I won the final match, and that's the best feeling I've ever had in sport. Like, if you could tell me to go back to one moment in my life, I'd relive that one daily, because that's like, I remember for the next 3 days, like, I felt like I was just floating. Like, it was incredible. And then we went on to Tokyo, where sadly, like, as much as it's an impressive medal, it's kind of an anticlimax, because they took away the bronze playoff. So once you made the semi-finals, you won a medal. And we won our quarter-final against Hungary, and being honest, like, if we lost that, I'd be thinking, what's happened here? So it was almost like, and we lost again. We lost to China. We lost to them 3-2 in the doubles, and then my teammate lost 3-2 in the singles. So it was almost like it was the first ever time we didn't win a bronze medal. we lost to get a bronze medal, so it was a bit of an anticlimax. But each story's like got great meaning, and I'm very proud of each medal I've won.
So tell me more, Tokyo. So 20 million people watched it on TV, which is just unbelievable. One for Paralympic sport, two for table tennis.
Yeah.
You must have been recognisable, walking down the street.
Yeah, it was obviously a strange one. Obviously with COVID, the games. I mean, I think it got to the stage where we were so glad the games actually went ahead, because obviously it did get postponed a year, and it was crazy. Like we were out there, and you literally, once your match was done, you had to get out of the venue within 15 minutes. You had to get on a bus, go straight back. You had to stay in your room. Basically, the only time you could take a mask off was when you were physically in your bedroom, or when you were physically playing. So it was a very strange place. But again, like table tennis in Japan is like their second biggest sport. I think sumo wrestling is their first, or baseball, and then it's table tennis. So the tickets had sold out within about 2-3 minutes of them going on sale originally. So we were like, this is going to be incredible. We're going to have so many people. It's going to be so crazy. And obviously we've gone there and had nothing. So we were playing in a stadium which had less people in than when we play a normal international, which, when you go to normal international, it depends on where you go. There's not many people, but we had like 0 people. So that was really weird. But I remember playing my first match against an Australian guy and winning, and then coming off and thinking like quite a relatively straightforward win personally. I'm thinking like, that's cool, go back to the village. And as I'm going back to the village, you've got all the helpers in the village, and these like people come up to me and they're like, oh, like putting their thumb up and saying well done. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? It's a bit strange. Kept going around, keep doing it. Someone else can take pictures and stuff. And I was thinking, what is going on? I've been here for the last 10 days. Like no one's paid any attention to me. And then got back to the village, got back to our apartment, and we've got like a GB section downstairs. And then as we walked in again, all the GB staff, Aaron, senior match, well done. I was like, oh, brilliant. I was like, loads of people out there, like asking me for pictures and stuff. I was so confused. And she was like, oh yeah, you were streamed on like Japanese TV. And I went, what do you mean? She was like, their version of BBC. I went, oh really? That's cool. That's really cool. She was like, yeah. I was like, must have been watched by quite a few people. And she was like, yeah, I think it's watched by like 12-15 million people, something like that. And I went, oh, that's probably why they're all asking me for photos and stuff. She was like, yeah. I was like, this is unbelievable. So it's like cool in some ways, because I was thinking, and part of that made me think, if this was this year with how it was, I bet it's going to be outrageous. But I still think Paris will be incredible. They have a very big following of table tennis as well, and they're quite like a rowdy crowd, which like I personally love it. It's almost like a football sort of atmosphere. So
tell me, what always interests me is the athletes' village. What goes on? What's it like? Is it friendly, happy-go-lucky? Do people sit in their nationalities, not engage? And what is the kind of environment, atmosphere like in it?
It's very strange, to be honest, because table tennis, us personally, we're one of the few sports where we actually get on with quite a lot of our opponents. Like when we're at normal internationals, we will have coffee with some of them, have a chill, have a laugh. And for some reason, when you get to the Paras, it becomes very divided. It becomes very much like Great Britain only, like China, Holland, like everyone stays very separate. But the cool thing about it is you get to interchange with other sports, which we never normally do. So GB are amazing. We always have like a patio bit, basically. So we basically have massive apartment blocks. You can only think about it, it's 25 floors. Every sport's got their own floor. And then down the bottom would be like, recovery rooms and stuff. But outside we've got like bean bags and TVs and pool tables and stuff, like a chill area. And they have like humongous TVs, which is streaming all the sports. So they'll have like, you'll see swimming and basketball and us and other sports athletics. So it's like when you come home every evening, there's like updates on the wall. Aaron's just won, or
nice.
Ellie Simmons has just won. And it's like, so when you see athletes, you're like, oh, I just saw your match, like congratulations. And it's like the camaraderie is like way bigger. So that's something in London 2012 that we didn't really do. Like as our sport, we basically just kept ourselves to ourselves. And I was like, we regretted that a little bit. And in Rio and Tokyo, Tokyo was a bit harder obviously because of COVID, but in Rio, I remember it being amazing. Like every evening you were talking to athletes you would never think about interacting with normally because it's not your sport. But it was like the team spirit was like 50 times better. And then obviously the village is just, it's a weird place. It's like, it's like a bubble of like, you can't explain it, to be honest, because it's a fake place. You're in a building, you're in a place for a few weeks where you get anything you want. Like you go into the food hall and you're just taking bottles of drink out. Like you're taking 10 bottles of drink back to your room and you feel like you're stealing it. And I always remember after London 2012, they had these vitamin waters. I loved them. They were like vitamin waters and it was like really popular back then. and they were in the games, they were free because it was a Coca-Cola product. So I'll be having like 10 of them a day. And I remember after the games, obviously I lived in Sheffield back then, so we got a bus back from London 2012 up to Sheffield, and we stopped at the service station, walked into like a WH Smith, and I picked one up, and I've gone to walk out the shop without thinking, and I've suddenly gone, what are you doing? And I've walked up and I've gone to pay for it. He's like scanned it, and the guy's like, yeah, it's going to be like £4. I went, £4? I was like, I've been having 10 of these a day. But it's like, it's just a fake world where like you just get everything you want for 2 weeks, and for 2 weeks you're kind of a celebrity. But then it's literally, you leave it and it's like, poof, completely forgotten. But it's an incredible thing to experience, to be honest.
Do you guys do some form of team building or something to get the team together? What works well? What doesn't? What do you enjoy? What don't you enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, we have done in the past. We actually literally, so it's quite funny actually saying that we've got our kitting out on July 10th, I think, in Loughborough. So basically, we as a team we go to Loughborough and all Adidas are there, and we have all of the kit, and we basically try it all on and pick the sizes and whatever. And if you need any alterations, and we're doing a team building day that day with table tennis, so we'll basically go out and do something which we don't know at the moment. It's a surprise, but I think in the past we've done some stuff. But like the problem with athletes doing team building is it doesn't ever become team building because we're so competitive. So it's like, I think one year we went paintballing, and they're like, oh, this will be a bit of a laugh, mix the teams up, and then you've suddenly got like teammates that are bringing walkie-talkies and stuff that are trying to like get advantages and like get these. So we just do loads of things, but it ends up just becoming like super competitive always. But I think as a team, we're actually a really good bunch of people. Like we've got a great mix in terms of like personalities, and you've got older athletes and younger athletes. You've got some leaders. You've got some people that are sort of bringing them up. And I think I really personally like the blend of our team. It's like a real mixture of like different types of people, and I think it seems to work very well.
It kind of almost in a business environment, right? You go complete mix of people, and
yeah.
Is it more just everyone respects everyone for the role that they play and the jobs that they do? Without any particular team building, it's just everyone arrives and it's a team because we respect each other, and that's the basis of the foundation of the relationship.
Yeah, to be honest, I think the biggest thing is our boss Goraz Veko, when he came in, he's Slovenian. When he joined us in 2011, so literally around the time I started, he joined. And I don't know much before, but from what I hear before, the team dynamics weren't great. You'd have people almost wanting teammates to lose because it would make them look better if they done well and they lost. It makes them look better. Like really weird atmosphere. And he brought in this thing where like he always believes in like the family spirit. So he brings it in like we are a family. Like we're not a sports team first, we're a family. Like he's almost like the dad, and we're brothers and sisters. And in the beginning, we were like, what are you doing? What's going on? This is it. But we are literally like a family now, and it's almost like we will. I could call my boss anytime, 3 a.m. I could call him about anything. Like it doesn't have to be sport related, and he'll pick up and he'll talk to me, or we'll go for food, we'll go for coffee, and it's like very relaxed. And it's the same thing, like he's very big on we support everyone equally. Whether you're doing good or bad, you're not treated any differently. You're treated the same, and it's all about looking after the person first. Like the sport's secondary. He almost doesn't care about the sport. If we're successful or non-successful, he treats us the same. But it's more about how we are as people. Like, are you a good person? Are you when you're successful, are you being a nice person to the rest of your teammates? Are you helping people? Are you going above and beyond to help? Like that's his most important ethos. And I think in the beginning we used to think like this is worthless. It's not important for sport. But I think as the years have gone on, we've realised actually no, it's so important. And it's almost like now we're more successful because of that. And a lot of nations always say to us now, like Great Britain, you get on so well. Like you literally, like you look like you love being around each other, having fun. And I think the biggest thing he brings in is like he doesn't expect us all to be best of friends. Like we're different personalities. I might get on with some teammates better than others. But you have that like baseline of respect that you don't need to be mean to someone if you don't personally have the same things you like. If they're not into the same things, it doesn't mean you have to be like, oh, they're not a nice person. But it's like having that baseline of respect and then sort of finding like common ground where you can get on, and realizing in a team, like for sport, we need each other. I can't become a successful athlete without my teammates because I can't practice. So if I'm behind their back slagging them all off, like they're probably not going to help me as much as I need anyway. So it's a give and go, like it's a give and throw. Like sometimes I need to give, and then I'll get in return later in the week or later in the month. But it's that give and go which helps.
I find it really interesting. This is a big kind of discussion topic I've seen on LinkedIn at the moment, which is not to talk about like a family culture in a business or a team, but everything you've just said, all about the positive sides of a family where, yeah, we may not all like the same things. And with my siblings, there's a guarantee we all like different things. But at the end of the day, there's trust, respect for each other, and that helps build up the foundations. So I really like that. And thank you for sharing, because I think it's definitely a great snippet that we can learn. Tell me a little bit about the support you're given, the funding you're given, and how you build yourself to be this, professional athlete on the funding that's given to you.
Yeah, so obviously we are supported by the government and UK Sport, which is the governing body basically, and it's solely dependent on performance. So, if you win medals at the Paras and Worlds, you get X amount of funding. If you win medals at Euros, it goes down, and the categories go down and down based on how you are. And obviously, while the funding's incredible, like we're one of few nations that provide that, it's not enough to really sort of properly give it 100%. And you've got to think about paying your bills and mortgage and all this sort of stuff. It quickly goes away, and then you're left with very little to actually invest into the extras you want for sport. So we look for outside help, which is obviously you guys have come in and been incredible, helped me so much in the last few months leading up to Paris. But I think Paralympic sport is well funded now, but it's not something you get into if you want to be a multimillionaire. You get in it for the love of the sport. But it's about finding people, like-minded people that realize your dream and sort of want to be part of that, knowing that they're helping as well. And the way I always try and sell it is like, if I'm successful, like I'm not successful personally. I might be the bit product that's doing it, but there's loads of people behind, people like you guys. I've got physios and all them sort of people that are supported, that are funded by UK Sport to help me. And it's without all these little bits of the puzzle, it doesn't get made.
What's next? What's next for you?
Literally the next few weeks, I go to the Czech Republic, which will be my final international before Paris. So chance to get a few more ranking points, try and get my seeding up a little bit better if I can. And then it's literally flat out training July and beginning of August, and I think we're due to leave for Paris on the 20th of August. So I'll be in the village like a week before it starts. So it's going to be there quicker than we know it.
And individual gold and team gold on the cards.
That is the aim.
Yeah.
The aim, 100%. I've put myself with the best shot I've ever had, to be honest. Like I go into every games knowing it's going to be difficult, but I've had the best year I've ever had in my sport. So I keep saying to my media person, she's like, "Why are you playing good?" I'm like, I feel I'm like a fine wine. Like the older I'm getting, I'm starting to play a bit better, and it should be the opposite way around. I should be doing worse, but for some reason it's getting better. So I'm in the position where if it's going to happen, like I know I've got a chance, but I'm also realistic, and I know that there's 10, 12 other players that can win on the day, and it's about bringing it on the day. But I think I know that 100% I'm going to prepare the best, and I'll be ready.
Great. Well, listen, your story is truly inspirational. Inspired me, inspired everyone at Cleenol. You're a truly very determined individual. I believe it, and I know everyone here does, and I'm sure everyone else everywhere does. Best of luck, and can't wait to be here sitting aside because I've got a gold medal down on the edge of me. But good luck.
Cheers. Thank you very much.